Yesterday I gave a workshop about the energy transition and the fuel cell economy. The workshop was in Linz, Austria. It was in German, but for our international audience this video is in English. It was a 4-hour workshop where we discussed the techniques behind hydrogen and fuel cell technology, when to use them, when not to use them in our new economy systems, when to prefer batteries, for example, and how to make the transition from our current ecosystem with fossil fuels towards a renewable energy system. We had very interesting participants who were quite knowledgeable about battery techniques, electric driving on batteries, and also quite knowledgeable about hydrogen. But as always, there was a discussion from the start about the do's and don'ts, which I do understand, and well, there's no problem with that. So at the end, there was a panel of which I was part. I was one of the members of the panel, and at the end we were asked how our world would look in 10 years from now, so in 2029. So fasten your seatbelts. This is my prediction for the next 10 years, or at least a few of my predictions, about how we're going to use vehicles within about 10 years and energy. I see a kind of an energy crisis coming. It's in about 5 years. So around 2025 or maybe earlier. Could be because we have trouble about in regions where now a lot of oil is coming from, and it will help us make fast decisions to change. So I see it actually as a positive thing. Oil could become very expensive if there's stress in countries where regularly oil and gas comes from. Specifically oil. On the other hand, we see a large car manufacturers like Volkswagen in Europe, but a lot of Chinese manufacturers that we don't even know by name yet in the US and in Europe that are producing lots and lots of vehicles. Most of them are not readily road legal, tested and approved to be used on European and American roads. But that will change soon, I think. So a lot of vehicles will be very cheap in the next few years if the large car manufacturers start producing them, and within a few years they will be as cheap as, or even cheaper than fossil fuel cars. That will be a really major shift. I see some stress coming, not for the batteries, not for the sources of the batteries, of course a little bit, but I think we will overcome that. But what I do see happening is that the charging infrastructure is getting under a lot of stress. You can charge a battery vehicle very fast, the charging outlets are there, but the big trouble, the big bottleneck always is literally the underlying infrastructure. The infrastructure, the copper wires in the ground. So I foresee we might need to double our battery capacity for every car. There might be in some periods of time the need for backup batteries that need to be installed on places where a lot of batteries will be charged at the same time. So probably, if you ask me, gas stations that will be transformed into battery charging stations. They will have a need for backup batteries, because if a lot of people are going to charge along the highway, we will have trouble over there. That will be the big issue. Second, and it has a lot to do with that point, is that I see a very fluctuating price for electricity as well as hydrogen. It could be there are times where hydrogen will be cheaper than electricity because the supply of electricity is low. For example, if there's no wind and the sun sets and the PV panels don't deliver that much and there's a high demand. I see trouble over there, but also I see systems coming where you are driving your electric vehicle on the highway and you get a message in your dashboard saying, well, there's now a lot of surplus of electricity. You can charge your battery, which is half full or nearly empty, with a big discount because the electricity is so readily available that they actually need to get rid of it. On the other hand, you see periods of time where that specific energy is going to be stored, and a good way of storing it is hydrogen. And hydrogen specifically can help us store energy from summer times or windy times or both to winter times. The interesting thing is that, as we discussed yesterday in Linz in Austria, you see that hydrogen fuel cells are going to be used more in winter times than in summer times. Why is that? Not primarily because you need to heat, but that certainly is an advantage. You're going to use fuel cells for the electricity they produce, and in the winter there is, on the northern hemisphere, there is a lot less solar energy, and the time frame in which the sun shines is a lot smaller because the sun sets quite early in the evening, and dawn is later in the morning. So you have a lot less solar energy. On the other hand, of course, you need to heat more on the northern hemisphere, so you're going to need the heat that fuel cells produce. So it will be a big advantage. There are already systems that use both electricity the fuel cells produce as well as the heat they produce. So that's going to be an advantage. So, and the trouble is, what we discussed yesterday is that 80% of our energy consumption is actually warmth. Well, actually, making homes and businesses now that use primarily gas to heat, you cannot just exchange that gas for electricity that is. The grid can just supply so much energy. So we're going to have to replace gas and we have to make it greener, and hydrogen is a very good way of doing that. Now that I come to it, actually I flew from Amsterdam to Vienna Monday. Some people say, well, shouldn't you shouldn't do that, you should take the car or the train. Actually, there are several reasons why I don't. First of all, a plane is a lot safer. Many times safer, maybe 1,000 times safer than a car. Second, it would take me too much time, so I just don't have the time to be in a car for 1,000 kilometers. Third, interestingly, the airplane goes anyway. It's a plane that goes every day 1 or 2 times by KLM, and if I wouldn't take it, it would have gone. So me taking a car is an extra. Now the car is standing still, so that is a kind of a reason. All the people taking this plane should stop flying, and then maybe the plane wouldn't go or something like that. So I don't really see that as an advantage. On the other hand, the car I drive is very economical, very eco-friendly if you drive not a lot of the time, because it has a battery also. But if you drive a long way, it just consumes a lot of gasoline. So I hope you understand that I take a plane to go to Vienna. So that was my personal experience. I now see that I can check in, so I need to go now. Nice talking to you, and see you next time. Thank you.